You nailed it. You nailed it.
So close.
I mean, I was pretty close. I give the guys, mostly Scott, I guess, a like a broadcast style countdown where the last two are silent, and then there's the point.
Did Scott have to do anything at the point, though?
I was expecting him to. I was pointing at him like he was live, and he just did nothing. Thank God I was early.
Okay. I'm going to move along to something else, but only because actually one of our patrons, it's regarding Remy, but Remy texted me the other day and he was like, hey, Teddy and I just watched Dead Poet Society.
Oh, let's go, guys.
Which I failed to mention to him is Tyler's maybe favorite movie of all time.
It's my favorite movie of all time. It's number one for me. Yeah.
Well, he didn't like it.
Really?
No, I'm joking. I think he liked. I think he liked it, but
he trashed it.
He said that.
I mean, he texted me. Don't tell Tyler.
Oh my god!
I think he said the ending was not what he was really expecting, but then he asked, like, "Have you guys done it yet?" And I was like, "It was literally our 11th episode." So he went back and listened to it.
Oh,
what do you think of then versus now?
I didn't. I should have asked him, Remy. You should let me know or let us know in our group chat what you thought if we have progressed.
Because that was back at the time when we were like work through the plot of every
movie.
That was rough.
It definitely got
two
better.
rival gangs are looking for a body.
I think it got a lot better, and I still think about often how you two made that decision, and then just I had no idea that we were going to
Unilaterally.
change it. Yeah. I don't think it was a bad decision.
Or bilaterally, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was so thrown off by it.
Yeah.
It took me an episode just to get my head around what we were doing.
Well, and I think we ended, and I said, by the way, I forgot to mention we're changing the format.
In the spirit of two rival gangs, I kind of like having a segment of describe this plot poorly.
Yeah, but like quick.
Yeah, very quick.
It's like back then we were spending the whole episode on that.
less than 30 seconds to
Yeah.
describe this movie poorly.
Yeah. We give it a shot with this one.
I've got one for Blade Runner 2049 already.
Okay,
I don't know if
we'll
I
figure it
have
out by the end of this.
I start thinking about them, but I don't think I have one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah. What was I saying?
I don't remember.
I was in the middle of.
We were talking about
Remy,
Dead
Dead
Poet
Poet Society.
Oh, well, I'll just jump back to that. Remy, I'm glad you watched it. Truly one of my favorite movies of all time. And I hope that you at least sort of enjoyed it. And I agree that the ending is definitely very out of left field.
Speaking of, I've been meaning to tell you this, Zach, of like fans, but Carlos, my friend, he really wants to meet you. I think I've stoked the fires of a rivalry between the two of you over Slack with him. And so he wants to meet
Am I
you.
still his favorite?
He still loves you. He wants to meet
Does
you.
he want to meet Zach for a showdown?
No,
I don't know if I want to meet him now.
No,
Is
he
he
wants
a
to meet
top?
you for He's a top. Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to meet you for friendly reasons, but I always been like, oh, like I don't know how I've done it, but then he's been like, man, I got to meet Zach just to know how he is in real life.
Salute, familia.
You know, Carlos, he's not a patron.
He's not a patron. He's got two kids.
I
He can't
asked
afford to
you
be
if he was a
patron.
patron. You said he was.
You said he's a tot.
You did ask if
Oh,
he
I
was
said Todd.
You
Yeah.
can't afford to
All
find.
right, well, I take away the familia stuff.
But you are still his favorite. He talks about that a lot.
That's cool.
Carlos, I think I enjoyed Scarface.
Carlos won't hear this.
I enjoyed Scarface the most.
I'll tell him.
He
though.
does give us money.
I'll tell him tomorrow on Slack.
Tell Carlos I enjoyed Scarface the most out of all of us, and I tried to defend it a little bit.
I'll bring that up. Yeah, I think he'll like you. I think he just doesn't like the movies you pick.
And I'm like,
honestly,
Carlos-
and so he wants to make fun of you a little bit for it.
get in line, Carlos.
Carlos, for $5 a month,
Jake and I agree.
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
Tom agrees, and I'm sure more agree as well.
For $5 a month, I will run down Zach's opinion once a month, just any time it fits, even if I don't agree.
Aw.
I'll pass that information on because he's not going to see this.
I know.
All right, should we jump in? Should we strap in?
Yeah. Jake,
Strap in.
you're on the start.
Let's do it.
She's a replicant, isn't she?
I'm impressed. How many questions does it usually take to spot one?
I don't get it, Tyrell.
How many questions?
20, 30 cross-referenced.
It took more than 100 for Rachel, didn't it?
She doesn't know.
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our motto. Rachel is an experiment, nothing more.
We began to recognize in them strange obsession. After all, they are emotionally inexperienced with only a few years in which to store up the experiences which you and I take for granted. If we gift them with the past, we create a cushion or pillow for their emotions, and consequently we can control them better.
Memories. You're talking about memories.
What is up, everybody? My name is Jake, and you just listened to an entire episode of the Rotten Potatoes podcast, a podcast where four friends sit down and review movies you absolutely should have seen, but one hasn't. And Scott, can you play us out?
Any final thoughts? Yeah.
I was really long. I'm here with three of my friends, though.
I'm Zach.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Scott.
I'm Jake again.
It's always so fun for us to find out in real time which opening credit.
Yeah,
So
I think
opening
This
dialogue
entire
Scott
batch of
does.
recordings, I was just running short on time, but I wanted to get them done. So I just typed in the movie name and then clip, and whatever the top one was is what I chose.
I think we're gonna have a segment that I pitched a while ago, which is what would you have picked versus what Scott picked, because I feel like maybe if we were going to do something long anyways, the end of the movie, actually I don't know how the different cuts vary and what cut you guys watched. I watched the final cut. Apparently one of them has narration over the end of the movie. I did not watch that cut. I would have maybe picked the end of the movie where Harrison Ford is talking to the replicant as he's dying is probably what I would have picked, but I don't know. I don't think I would pick this scene.
What audio clip would I have picked? I would have picked probably just like part of their interview.
Oh, at the
Just
beginning,
some
the
of the
replicant.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
The replicant interview. That's probably what I would pick. But here's the thing. I just got to say, Scott puts in more work on this podcast than the three of us combined.
100%. I'm not mad at it at all.
And any one of us could actually go get these audio clips for him and just send them to his computer, and he would be happy to use someone else's picks. It's just we've put it on him.
No, I'm not upset.
And we don't have to complain.
I'm not
Sounds
complaining.
like you're upset.
I'm not complaining. I think it's interesting and I like to talk about it, but I fully recognize that you have the control of that, and that's fine.
Let's listen to it again.
That's so long, please. There's a couple seconds of silence in that clip.
I think Scott thought he had switched pages and he was about to hit.
No, that's this one.
I'm glad that you know where that is at all
He's-
times.
he's
And then when
got
we
it
want to
memorized.
dance,
Now I gotta
Now that we've finished blowing out your eardrums,
This is Blade Runner.
yeah, Jake, tell us a little bit about this movie and why you picked it.
This movie I mostly picked because Zach said, I really want to pick Blade Runner 2049. And I was like, I kind of wanted to watch Blade Runner for a long time. And he's like, if you do it, I'll definitely pick 2049. And he was like really eager about it. And I was like, okay, I'll pick Blade Runner then. It's one of the, I think this is one of these movies that I feel like I've thought about most for the podcast, where it's a movie that I think everybody should see because it's very famous, but I would never have watched it if it wasn't for this. And I think that like this is one of those of like, why do this? To like watch a movie like this that I never would have picked to watch in my time, but it is famous and I feel like everybody should watch it once. But I had never seen it.
Fair enough.
Do I give my take now or do I just go?
No. You did great, man. You
I'll do
did
the
great.
facts.
Scott, why don't you hit us with a little bit of just the facts? Sorry, I kind of got lost, Jake. To be honest,
Was I rambling?
No.
Oh, okay.
You weren't rambling. I just fixated on something that you said early on, and I was trying to think about. Yeah, I overthought it.
I'm excited to hear what that is.
This was directed by Ridley Scott, written by Hampton Fancher.
Is
and
that the author of the book?
David Peoples? No, it
No.
was based off of a novel by
Philip
Philip K.
Dick.
Dick
Okay.
called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?"
Which I think is an awesome title.
It is. It's frankly a better title than Blade Runner.
So
I
much
wish
better.
they would have gone with the original title.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
This released June 25th, 1982. Runtime of 117 minutes. Our Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 89%. IMDb an 8.1. Box office of 41 million on a $30 million budget, so it's a 1.4 return. Didn't win any awards, but it was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best VFX.
Jake, what you had never seen this,
No.
so you nominated it blind.
Yeah, but I've nominated it blind, but it's something that I have been wanting. Like before we had this podcast, even I thought I should watch Blade Runner because I feel like it's an important movie that people talk about, and I just never got around to it.
Huh.
So I thought if I do this now, I'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
That was like primarily what inspired us to do this, but also like the clinch pin was I had also said then I would nominate Paddington 1.
Yeah.
So that
we
then
didn't do
you
that.
could nominate Paddington 2.
And then we didn't do that.
Yeah.
I
you
bailed.
you kept up a Faustian bargain with Zach
I'm
that
expecting
he
some
never
Paddington from you guys next year.
that he
Yeah.
never made good on.
Zach owes.
would be like anything.
I'll try to make it a movie, but I'm not gonna make any promises.
Jake, can you
Okay.
just do Paddington 1 and Paddington 2 next year and back to back?
Here's-
of
Can
your
I get
picks?
2 ones in 1 month? 2 episodes in 1 month?
I'll trade you one of mine.
Over putting my foot down as hard as I did that I think it ought to be me who gives up something for this, but I will sacrifice something, whatever the fellow RPs.
Because Paddington 2 is the
boys.
perfect movie, right?
Paddington 2 is higher rated than Paddington 1. They're both so high rated.
So you would have to do Paddington 1 and
I'm-
then Jake could do Paddington
I'm just
2.
saying since then I've watched a couple of excerpts and I'm like, there's no shot I'm going to really like this movie, but I understand that it is a real, like, it's a real film. I eat my
Better or
words.
worse
I was
than
wrong.
any of the
It
FCU
is
movies.
a real film.
People
It was a
love
real film that people definitely love.
Here's the thing, Tyler. I don't even think I'm gonna like it,
Yeah,
but I want to watch it to know what's going on.
I don't think anything good is.
I
going
almost
on.
nominated another Miyazaki film next year,
Really?
Really?
Which one?
Which one?
but I didn't. I don't even remember. It was just something super highly rated.
I saw some.
Turturro or
I
Yeah.
saw this is unrelated to what we're talking about right now, but related to Miyazaki. I saw the craziest post I've ever seen online. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the game Stardew Valley.
No.
Mhm.
It's a farming sim, and it was very beloved, or still is very beloved. And then the creator said, "I will never sell the movie rights to this game unless Miyazaki or Ridley Scott
Hmm.
wants to make this movie." And I couldn't think of 2 more different people to ever put together.
I disagree wholeheartedly,
You think?
and I think that's a perfect segue into the most anime-inspired Western film of the 1980s,
Yeah.
Blade Runner.
That's interesting.
Because of all the nudity.
No, just
There
in
was no
general,
nudity in
like,
this one.
There was a little bit.
There was a little.
Oh, there was a little bit, yeah.
a little bit.
There was a lot of nudity in this
I
one.
think it's just
There's
one.
not a
scene.
No, it was
lot.
the second one that had
The second one had a lot of
a
nudity.
lot. The second one.
This
had a
one
lot.
had
second
one
one
scene that I
doesn't
kind of
have-
forgot about.
Oh,
Yeah.
it does. It has more than I remember.
They're kind of bleeding into each other at this
They-
point. I watched
they-
them back to back.
Yeah, they are for me too. But yeah, gotta say, super anime inspired film.
I think it's insane that Atari was like the second biggest product placement in this
Yeah.
movie.
Right. Behind Coca-Cola.
Yeah, and like who cares about Atari anymore? And this was in 2019, apparently.
Yeah.
I can't believe I missed all this when it
Yeah.
happened.
Ironically, not the biggest product placement in this one, but pretty big in the second one. LAPD.
Yeah.
Like I forgot so many.
Every single movie we have has at least one scene in Los Angeles. Most entirely it take place almost entirely in Los Angeles for
Right.
these 4 movies.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, and I couldn't think like a lot of pretty different movies.
Well, 2 of them very similar.
Yeah, 2 of
but
them very similar,
The
but-
other 2 very different.
I didn't do any research on Blade Runner. Was it legitimately inspired by anime?
Well, yeah. So mostly, so I did a fair amount of research on both Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, which we're doing next week. So stay tuned for a doubleheader. But actually, that might be fun. We haven't planned for this, but what do you guys think? Maybe we could release this as a doubleheader on a Monday. Anyway,
So we can talk about that offline.
yeah. Anyway, in doing that research, Ridley Scott in particular intimated to Denis how much, like all of his inspirations, but how much of it really was like anime and his like Japanese culture. And as a result, Denny commissioned 3 short films to fill in gaps in between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. And the first one, I'm pretty sure, was made by Roger Deakins, and it was an anime.
That's what I did feel like we were in a little bit of Japangeless
Yeah,
in this movie.
definitely,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it was ironic, like, Ridley really like thought and talked about that he at the time, really like thinking ahead, really believed that Asian culture would surpass anything else as the world's culture by that time, by 2019. And so he like drew a lot on Japanese culture, a lot on Chinese culture, and a lot on what was the third one that he said that I thought, Thai culture, which I thought was that seemed like the biggest long shot, like over Indian or like, you know, like, but anyway, he thought Thai culture was going to be very influential by now. But yeah, no, it really was. And in fact, in like one particular scene in 2049, which I know I'm getting ahead and I'm sorry, but they are a little linked to me. Denny like settled on was just a name that was like up in lights, like just a big sign, like when they're out in the second movie, when they're out on like the rain scene, that whole backdrop is just the Japanese anime artist's name that was Ridley Scott's biggest inspiration for Blade Runner. So highly anime influenced.
Let's hear some takes.
Yeah, I can start. I picked it, so I can start. I really don't know how I feel about this movie. I don't think I enjoy watching it, but I don't think it was a bad movie. I feel like it did this thing. I kind of weird. I don't really know how to explain it, but I felt disoriented watching this movie. There was a certain point where I was like, I don't know what's going on in this movie. And then I paused it and I was like, no, I know what's going on, but I still feel confused. And I don't know why. I think I am hesitant to say that I like sci-fi. I think that most sci-fi sucks, but sci-fi that is good is awesome. And so I was excited about this movie. I really wanted to like it. I think when I think about it, I think the ideas are really cool. But mostly what I felt was, I'm glad I picked this so we could watch 2049, which is more modern and just felt it was easier for me to watch. This movie was just, it took effort for me to watch in a way that was a little bit disorienting. I don't think I disliked it. I think I have to watch it again. Maybe I'll feel a little bit differently if I watch it again, but I don't think it was a bad movie. I just had a general feeling of like disorientation or confusion that I can't really pin down the source of.
Zach, you had seen this movie before, right?
I had, yeah.
Yeah. So what was your take watching it again?
I liked it a little bit more this time. The first time that I'd seen it, I didn't care for it. I thought it was a little overrated, and I still might think it's a little overrated, to be honest. But not to bury the lead, but I like Blade Runner 2049 quite a bit, and I've seen that movie a few times. And so I think now having a little bit more exposure and that this movie has a connection to a movie that I really like, helped me appreciate this film a little bit more. I feel like on paper, I should really like this movie because I really like a lot about it. I really like the world that we are placed in, that the story is placed in. I love the concept. I love the idea of replicants, and then the fact that they had commissioned Blade Runner to go take out the replicants. I love the aesthetic of this movie, the design. I think the design is incredible. I think the cinematography is really great. The score is really great. Everything about it, like on a technical level and like the general premise of it, I really, really like. The execution of the story, and maybe it's just like really my main issues lie within the script. I don't love. And
Not
sometimes
to latch onto.
Yeah, I guess so. And like at times I find myself like a little frustrated with the movie. And I think that there's points of the movie where I'm kind of thinking like, this almost feels like a waste of time. considering that we have such a cool, like rich world to explore right now. And I just don't feel like we're doing that very much. And I really want, like, it kind of just leaves me wanting more. And so it's not my favorite film. There's some aspects of it that, like some, I think, directorial decisions that Scott made that I just don't know if I really can get on board with. I feel like this movie has a sense of melodrama that the second one really doesn't nearly as much, that like really kind of rubs me the wrong way. So I think overall I like it. Definitely love it. And it's not a movie that I'd probably return to very often. And if I do, it'd be the same way that I consume The Hobbit. The Hobbit is not I don't super enjoy reading it, but sometimes it feels necessary to consume just as like a prelude to my favorite like trilogy of books ever written.
I think I was thinking about something I disagreed with that you were saying, where you feel like this is like not exploring the world. I feel like what this has as far as exploring the world or over the other movie, the 2049, is that this is like kind of like it's not the end of the world. Like the stakes aren't so high. Like it feels very much more like a day in the life of this world, or not a day in the life, but like a week in the life of a Blade Runner.
Sure.
In the world, where I feel like that's more exploring the world and more in the world, that we're not like, this is this huge conflict that is deciding the fate of the world. This is just a world that we're not like, this is this huge conflict that is deciding the fate of the world. This is just us existing here and living in the world and doing like this way, kind of like this like old timey noir movie set in the future.
It gives us maybe a better example of like what life actually would look like.
Yeah. Like the life of a Blade Runner, like some Blade Runner doing something.
I can see that. I don't know if I completely agree, but I see your point. But I think more so literally what I meant was just like geographically speaking, I just want to see more, because I feel like huge chunks of this movie take place in that weird dude's apartment where he has all the toys. And that aesthetically is super ugly and very off-putting. That whole, I don't like the design of it. And I'm sure that was intentional. Maybe they probably want me to like think that this guy's really weird and want me to feel uncomfortable, but it feels like wasted time when I have this movie that has such an incredible set deck and sense of design. I want to see more of that. And I don't want to waste time in this weird apartment that really is aesthetically unappealing and not necessarily impressive in my opinion. And in the second movie, we travel to multiple locations. And I think the sense of design is even stepped up. I feel like we just see a lot more in the second movie. And part of it too is because it's longer, so we have more of a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. That place was upsetting and not good to look at, but I think that was some of the more tense action I feel like I've watched.
Really, because
I was so tense watching that, and I thought it was actually one of the better parts of the movie, even though I hated looking at it.
That's really interesting, because that's when the movie really drags for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Scott, you had never seen this before, right?
I had never seen this before.
What do you think?
Didn't really like it.
Okay.
I agree with a lot of what Zach just said. Like, I feel like it could have been something so cool and big and great. And there was a lot that they could have done with it. But the story for me just was kind of like whatever. I didn't know why I should even care about any of it. I also didn't think the acting was very good. It was kind of subpar for me. It definitely was aged, but I try not to hold that against it. I don't know. Throughout the whole movie, I was just kind of bored. I'm like, oh, man, this still has so much time left in it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it could have used some stuff cut out, but honestly, I just kind of wish there would have been a different story or plot to the movie in this world. Like, this world to me is super interesting. And I kind of like the like futuristic, like AI type things. But this definitely didn't do it for me.
It's interesting that you said it felt like long, or you want things cut out. And this is just my like notion that was entirely wrong. I thought this was a 3-hour movie, and I didn't really look. I just pressed play. And then I'm like, oh, it feels like it's wrapping up. And I thought I had a whole nother hour of this movie. So it felt kind of short to me, but it's because I was expecting a very long
Right.
movie.
The next one was almost 3 hours.
Yeah, that was where I think I got mixed up.
It's funny, you know, to be honest, I'm not going to bury the lead. I think I just don't like Ridley Scott.
Mm.
Like, to be honest, like now, like, you know, after doing this pod for a little bit, and I kind of felt like, well, I hate Alien, I hate, you know, a lot of other things, and I never really liked Blade Runner. And watching it again this time, I'm like, yeah, I just don't think I care for his style. And to a certain degree, there's no accounting for taste, and like that, I think is just on me. Like not on me. Like I think I'm wrong. I just don't like it, and I understand why other people do. Like, I thought that I really thought the set was pretty incredible. Like the art decoration in general was pretty incredible for the time. I feel like it aged all really well, especially Jake. Really, the material difference between the like main version and the director's cut or the final cut or whatever, to be honest, is just that it's been digitally remastered. Like there are a couple of tweaks, but it's mostly that it's been remastered.
I think there's a third cut of the movie called like the Harrison cut or the Ford cut.
I think there's like
Harrison Ford
technically
cut.
like 7
yeah, I think there's a
Yes.
lot of cuts.
But
Yeah.
where I think I heard something weird where like I was talking about this movie the day I was going to watch it. And someone was like, don't watch the Harrison Ford cut.
oh yeah, there are technically, I think it's 5 or 6 different cuts of the film. Like floating out there. There's the original cut, and then I think 4 others, and then the final cut.
Okay.
And the final cut is the one that like Ridley Scott says is that's his favorite version of the movie.
But it's basically the theatrical cut remastered.
Yeah, basically. There are a couple of little tiny differences, but yes.
Does the final cut have the narration in it still?
Oh wait,
Like the voiceover
no,
from
it
Harrison
does.
Ford?
That it didn't. I watched it and there was no like weird voiceover in that scene.
Then there's
I
not
hated
in
the
the final
voiceover.
or in the original. Then it's just then the voiceover
And
is
I
not
I think the
in-
original has the voiceover because I watched the original.
I watched the original. It didn't. Oh, it did have the voiceover.
I think that
but
also
the first time I watched it, it didn't have voiceover. So I think I watched the final cut the first time.
I don't know. I think also the
Pretty
final
weird.
cut had
Also,
that
Ridley
scene-
Scott loves putting out his
Also,
director.
by the way,
cuts.
real quick. I'm sorry, real quick.
No, yeah.
Every single cut, according to Ridley Scott, I watched the director's commentary on his final cut. According to him, the intro title, like the text, is
Mhm.
different in every single cut.
Huh. So I want to talk to you about director's cuts in a minute, but I think the other thing that Final Cut had, and I'm not positive, but I was talking to somebody that loves Blade Runner, and they were talking about it. I think that the end scene is different, where like they have like he's like walking out, and then something like they're gonna find her or whatever. He like remembers, and then there's like the little origami piece in
Right.
the hallway of his apartment.
Yeah, the unicorn.
Yeah, that somebody is gonna come after him and come after them, or that was the impression I got because he was another Blade Runner.
The
right?
opposite.
It was
Wasn't
just,
that guy a Blade Runner?
it was
Yeah, but it was
Gaff.
the opposite impression. It was Gaff, and the point was to say, I know who she is. I came here. I understand who she is. She's the unicorn, and I'm letting you go because she's not going to live that long anyway.
Interesting. Okay, I think I just misread that.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that I think was different in the cuts, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood what this person was telling me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All I know is different like cuts of this for sure, and everyone had like as many cuts as there are a like whatever exponential amount of opinions about like the lore. Like people, like you can line up 100 people who love Blade Runner. 50 of them are going to say that Deckard is a replicant, and 50 of them are going to say he's definitely a human.
And are the different nations in the different cuts? Is that why people are saying that, or like?
And it's part of it, but there's indications in all of them both ways. Like it's just there's no like clarity on it. And Ridley Scott was like, "Yeah, I think he's probably a replicant."
That was what I was
and then I think
interested.
Harrison Ford was just like, I think he's human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they don't agree. You know, like the
I-
creators.
I was interested to get into them more, and I was hoping it would get into them more in the sequel, where she was like, "Have you ever taken this test?" And I was like, oh,
Right.
has he?
Yeah.
And I kind of was hoping to get into that more, but we didn't.
I think it's because in part Harrison really believed that Deckard was human.
I got from the second movie, I got more of the impression that he was human.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it didn't seem consequential to the plot at all. So I didn't like when she said,
Which is ironic because it's so consequential to the plot of the second film.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Yeah.
ironic. But
but like it just was like it didn't go anywhere, and I guess it makes sense that it didn't go anywhere because it didn't matter. But also, I would have liked to have gotten into that. Was kind of my impression of that. Where she's like, "Did you take that test?" And I was like, "Give it to him right now." Take the test.
Yeah, I getting back to what I was saying earlier, like I just think I hate Ridley Scott. I don't particularly care for his I don't for his like his style. I understand how important and prevalent it is, and I'm nominating a Ridley Scott movie next year. But I just don't think I like him all that much. And this watch through kind of put the nail in the coffin for me about that. That being said, there are some specific things about this movie I really appreciate, and I think have stood the test of time in a way that I think most sci-fi films cannot and have not. And this is the third time I've watched it, and I refuse to ever watch it again. I just don't want to.
I don't want to watch it again either, to be honest. But I was thinking, I don't know about Ridley Scott in general, but if anybody was to say, I hate this movie or I love this movie, or to have any opinion in between, I would think that's completely reasonable. Like I can see this being a very I can see this being a very polarizing movie, and I'm honestly surprised that's completely reasonable. Like I can see this being a very polarizing movie, and I'm honestly surprised that it is as talked about in pop culture as it is, because I can see why people would hate it, and I can see why people would love it. And like it's interesting to me that it stood the test of time and been so like people consider it so important, because I can see it being polarizing.
Can we pause real quick? The podcast. Do you want to pause real quick? I need to call Kate.
Okay. Yeah, go for it, man.
I realized I left her at my parents without a set of keys to drive the car.
I'm gonna pee while he does that.
Sure. I'm just gonna let it keep
Hi.
rolling.
Yeah, because
It's gonna be way easier.
yeah, it'll be easier.
I got a couple.
We might have to wrap this up. I mean, if Kate's alone at
Oh, maybe. Hey, Patreon.
oh my gosh, I forgot we're still live.
What is the kind of stuff that happens sometimes?
Yeah, exactly. And now you get to have the special show hosted by Scott and Tyler.
This is the Hunter White cut of this episode. That's our name together. Hunter White.
That's our co-op name.
It sounds like someone who like sings country music.
It definitely sounds like someone who sings country music. It also sounds like maybe some form of like sci-fi android that Ridley Scott would create.
Like, ever watch out, it's Hunter White.
It's Hunter White, and this like droid comes in, and like
the whole time I was just kind of waiting. This was iRobot.
The whole time you're watching this
movie.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. Yeah, because I mean, the 3 laws would have protected all of us from all of this.
Yeah, although I guess they're not robots, right? Because they actually have flesh.
They're actually human-ish.
They're humanoids.
They're humanoids. They have no robotic element, I don't think.
They're like lab grown.
Yeah, lab grown.
Interesting.
But they're strong.
They're stronger. Yeah. And if you give them memories, they can have feelings.
Mostly, we're just keeping Patreon
Yeah, but are we about replicants right now?
Oh, we're just kind of, I don't know. Yeah, we were, but we're mostly just like
I was talking about how I wish this was iRobot.
and like, yeah.
You wish it was iRobot?
Yeah.
I haven't seen iRobot in such a long time. Has Zach seen it?
probably.
I'm sure.
That's-
There's no
it would have
way.
already been nominated.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
way.
I remember really liking iRobot, but I probably haven't seen it in a really long time.
It's not good.
Yeah, but it's probably fun.
It's
right?
a lot. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I don't need it to
It's
be
not
good as
good.
long as it's fun.
Yeah.
It needs to be good or fun or both. And I feel like that Will Smith in the early 2000s and late 90s was like fun and like bad movies that were pretty fun.
All right, sorry guys.
You okay?
Is Kate
Yeah.
stranded? Do you need to leave?
No, she's at my parents'. She just doesn't have a way to drive the car back. So I think she's gonna have to take like my dad's car, go home, get her keys, drive it back, and then take the car in the twins.
That's a little
unfortunate.
annoying.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. But she's like mad at me, but I'm also like, we both forgot. Because like I take my keys with me everywhere.
We're live.
Still on Patreon, by the way.
Oh. Okay. I didn't know that.
Sorry.
Anyways,
Sorry, dude.
yeah, we're good.
Although I don't
Uh,
think anybody's going to judge Kate for being mad at Zach for this.
No,
Because I'm mad
it's
at Zach
for
this.
sure. I just didn't want it to go any further than that.
No, I
without,
mean,
you
I-
know.
No, that's
I
100%
appreciate
fair.
that.
I was just
I
saying,
appreciate
like,
that.
I don't think anything bad. was
No,
said. Yeah.
definitely not. Of
Who-
course, she's mad at you. You're sorry, Patreon. You're a fucking moron.
You're
I
bad-
mean, it's not.
You're a bad
it's
dad.
not
You're a bad husband.
exclusively
You're a bad
myself. but
I love you.
I think a good rule of thumb is just bring your keys with you. everywhere you go. So, and I do that.
Yeah, I have never left my house without my keys.
Yeah, I think every adult should do it. Don't leave the house without the keys or wallet.
Right.
I have left my house without my keys if I'm not taking my vehicle. If I'm going in someone else's vehicle,
I still want to have my house keys.
And see,
I have other
I've
ways
made
of
that.
entering my
I've made
house.
that mistake though. I've had to climb into the window of my house before.
Yeah, I always have my phone, wallet, and keys with me.
I can open
At all
both
times.
a front door and my garage from my phone.
You know, you want to know where I didn't do this?
Okay, Tony Stark,
Yeah.
back off.
I-
all right?
I had
I think
had
we
a
should leave
smart
all
lock.
this on the main app.
yeah. I had a smart lock, and then my dad was coming over to help me look at my air conditioning. I lived in the condo, and I left the house and I pushed the lock button, and I thought, oh, I can just put in the code, and then smart lock failed, and my dad had to like sit there and wait with me for like an hour until I was like, oh, I need my parents to bring a ladder so I can climb up to my balcony. And then for the first time maybe ever, I had locked my balcony door, and I had to call a locksmith and then climb up onto my balcony and pick a lock. And from that moment on, I was
She
like,
couldn't have picked the lock downstairs.
the smart lock she couldn't pick. She said she was gonna have to break.
Oh,
And then the lock she picked. But then it was like, all right, I'm never gonna trust the smart lock, and I'm never gonna leave my house without my keys again.
Should we get back to it?
yeah. Who wants to pick it up?
So I was saying I think it's fair to not like it, right? Or like it or not like it. I don't know where we were.
Just jump into that.
Yeah, just-
I think I finished what I was saying. So I don't know if somebody wants to respond.
I would just you pick back up saying like, so yeah, I just think it's fine to not like it, and then we'll
Yeah.
have like Tyler
And then
respond.
I'll jump in from there.
But yeah, no, I think that like you not liking this movie is fair. But
Yeah.
I think that people liking this movie or not liking it is pretty reasonable.
I think I agree too. And I just wish that Ridley Scott was a better filmmaker. So Ridley, if you're hearing this, just do better, man. You know?
I
That
honestly,
I don't know about that take.
I want to hear from someone who loves this movie and feels like there is a lot here because I just don't see it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say like I have been friends who like this is one of their favorite movies, and I do want to like, you know, I want to love it, to be honest. I really want to like this movie. And there are a lot of elements that I think are really impressive. I think the fact that they created a universe that looks real out of such a small budget. Like they only spent $20 million on this compared to, you know, we'll talk about next week, whatever the sequel movie spent, but it was a lot more. And so the fact that they were able to create a universe that felt actually real, I think is super impressive. I think the redemption arc of Deckard, like, you know, pursuing these other thans and like the humanity truly of the antagonist, especially what's his name, Beat it Beatty.
Beatty
I don't
Batty.
remember.
Beatty. I think it's Beatty.
Just a double T, which is why I would say bad.
He had a first name, but I can't remember his first name. But like, you know, the humanity of him to like save Deckard at the end, like I think it's actually a super compelling story, to be honest. I think that like there's a lot there that I think is really unique and cool. I can't get over the fact though that every time I turn this on, it puts me to sleep immediately.
Yeah, I actually I couldn't understand anyone's motivation.
I can understand everybody's motivation.
Yeah, I think I'm with Jake. I think I understand everyone's motivation pretty well.
I think like it was something I was thinking about here. Like he is like, what's his name? The replicant is the antagonist.
Beatty, yeah.
But I don't know that I would even call him the villain. I think that the Tyrell Corp is the villain.
I agree.
Even though that guy is, even though the replicants are the antagonists from a story perspective, they're not.
Right.
I don't think they're villains, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that makes for a super interesting story.
Because like if I was them, I would want to live longer. I would not want to just live 4 years, and like I would do exactly what they were doing.
And there's something beautiful about the way that Beatty, like even though they've been fighting, Beatty and Deckard have been fighting for the last, 30 minutes of the movie. Beatty at the very end saves him at the end of his life. And I think it's like such a like, I don't know, like he just had to, his life was ending and he felt like if his life was ending, Deckard's life shouldn't end at the same time, or some version of like life is beautiful and should be like, I don't know, protected, or like there's something super like it leaves you with a super lingering kind of haunting feeling, like,
I think that's like partially, I think because they're not the villains, they're not like they're I think they both understand that
they're both pawns.
They're both doing what they have to do,
right?
And like acting under like in a system that they have to act in, but they don't feel any enmity towards each other. They are doing like Deckard is doing his job, and Bat is trying to live.
And like, the opening line of the movie is Deckard saying, "There aren't a lot of jobs for an ex-killer."
Yeah,
and that's what I am: an ex-cop, ex-Blade Runner, ex-killer.
Yeah,
and it's like, so he's just doing.
I was gonna say, did you get that in your cut?
I don't know that I did get that. I don't know that I did get that in it, but it feels like it fits. So
to be honest, when he started talking, I was like, I'm gonna hate this movie. I was like, man,
maybe you should have watched my cut.
I wish I would have, because his narration was some of the worst.
Yeah, there was no narration in mine.
The narration was honestly one of my least favorite parts of the movie.
I didn't have any narration.
It's Ridley Scott's least favorite part of the theatrical cut as well, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, but I think it's better without.
I kind of like it, to be honest. I'll be in the minority on this because it at least gave me a beat for the movie. As soon as it comes in, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit of like a steampunk noir detective movie. Cyberpunk, I'm sorry. Cyberpunk. Yeah, that's what I really meant, not steampunk. You're right.
What's the difference between steampunk and cyberpunk?
Steampunk, like
pirates,
a bunch of weird like steam engines and like.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever play Dishonored?
No.
Yeah.
I meant cyberpunk. You were right. I meant cyberpunk. Like a cyberpunk noir detective story.
Yeah.
And so like in the theatrical cut, like I kind of knew exactly at least what I was in for. I feel like it delivered on that, where it was like very, very slow, very like almost procedural. He's like going through the evidence and he's kind of on his own, and he's the drunk that can't ever connect. Like it felt like a noir, like a Dick Tracy story. And so the narration helped me.
I think that I didn't have the narration, but from my experience, never having the narration, still got that. So I don't think it was necessary. Like I was like, this is a crime noir. Like it felt like an old timey crime noir to me. And I think I said that earlier, but I maybe
you might not have. Yeah,
but I got that pretty quickly.
That might have been what I hung up on. Actually, yeah.
I think that like even without the narration, I got that. So that tells me that we didn't need it.
Right.
I do feel like it does make the film a little easier to track with. I never at any point thought like, if Harrison didn't tell me what he was thinking or what's going on, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I
was there
agree.
a lot of narration?
No.
Okay. It's just
No,
the
not a
two,
ton.
the one at the beginning, the one at the end.
No,
No,
there's more than that.
There's
There's some in the middle
It's
too.
just it's not all the time. It's not happening all the time.
there's maybe 3 or 4 times where he says a sentence or 2 of dialogue.
Okay. Interesting.
Or I'm sorry, 4 or 5 times that he says a sentence or 2 of dialogue.
Yeah, I didn't get a single one of those, I don't think.
Yeah.
Love you.
I don't know. I didn't mind it. It fit with, and I'm glad you read the genre that way, Jake. It makes at least my read, not having had the voiceover, at least not nonsense.
I kind of wish Ridley Scott would have tried a steampunk version.
I mean, we could try and make that happen. He's apparently pretty
Are we
free
gonna
with
make the room
the rights.
ourselves?
Let's do steampunk the room.
That's not what I was expecting.
It wasn't. Yeah, I'm out. Jake, what about this movie didn't work for you?
That's what I feel like. That's why I feel like I can't say this is a bad movie. Is I cannot vocalize what didn't work. Something didn't work. Something made me have a bad film watching experience, and I don't know what it was because I paused the movie in the middle of the movie because I was like, I feel confused and I feel I'm not enjoying this. But then I thought I like looked at every single part of the movie. It's like there's nothing about this. Like, if you sell what the story, I like it. Like setting the vibe, like the set decoration, I like it. So what is it that I don't like? I don't know. But there's something there because like I think it's an interesting story. I know Zach said he didn't like the script. I thought it was a good script, an interesting script. So there was something about it that didn't work, but I haven't been able to put my finger on what it is.
Maybe it was the 1982 vibe shift.
Could have been the vibe shift.
What?
I don't know. I'm trying to yes
What
and Scott.
1982 vibe shift? Can
I
you?
wasn't sure if that was just a yes and or if you
No, it was a yes and. I thought Scott was going to say more about the vibe shift.
Yeah. I was going to see if that sparked any other false narrative in anyone.
Oh, so is that just nonsense?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I should have
Here's what it
known that it
really
was
is.
nonsense because Scott was saying it.
Scott's trying to bait me into making shit up. That's what
You know
it
what
really
is annoying is that I
Like,
actually
in 1982 there was a big vibe shift.
Yeah, I was really excited to hear what Scott was going to say.
you know what's annoying is like I had something to say to contribute to the conversation and I don't remember it now.
To contribute to this conversation about something Scott made up.
No, before that.
Before
like,
that.
what we were saying
Oh,
is
real
Scott came in with a
Got sidetracked.
1985 vibe shift.
So I was talking about there was
okay.
there was something that I didn't like
Doesn't
about.
matter, you made it up.
You said it.
I'm sorry. Why are you getting
82?
defensive about your nonsense?
Also, this movie came out in '83. I think.
Shifted the vibe.
Yeah, you successfully shifted the vibe much worse.
I was getting bored, and now I'm no longer bored.
All right, that's fair.
I think this podcast thrives on you being bored. Being-
I'm gonna turn my
It's gonna
attention.
derail us.
Gosh dang it.
Scott,
I'm really interested in what you had to say though.
So,
Me
Zach,
too.
I was talking about how I couldn't pin down what didn't work for me in this movie because when I think about the elements of them, I liked all the elements of it. But
Oh, I
something about
remember.
it I didn't enjoy watching.
Because you had said that you disagreed with me that it's an interesting script, and I didn't mean to imply that I don't think it's an interesting script because I think it's interesting. I just don't care for the execution.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Like, I think on paper it reads really interesting. Like, it kind of the premise of it, the idea that like Blade Runners have to track down these replicants, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I feel like in some ways what this movie is lacking. For me personally, I feel like 2049 does really well. I think something for me that makes this movie really hard to engage with is I feel like this film, the original Blade Runner, is like heartless. I feel like there's no relatable human emotion that I can connect with. And I think one thing that makes the next movie really interesting is I can do that very, very easily with the characters that aren't human. And in this
Jared
movie,
Leto's.
yeah, mostly
Jared Leto.
I don't think Jared Leto is a human IRL,
but like Deckard is so apathetic. And I can't connect with him. I'm never really rooting for him. I don't know if I'm even supposed to root for him. And then the replicants in this movie are so like, not all of them, but the main one, Betty Beatty, the design of them, the characteristics, specifically Beatty, is just like so over the top and melodramatic that he doesn't feel like a real person to me.
Yeah.
So I can't connect with anyone in this movie. So I feel so detached. I feel like I feel
what
very.
about
I think
what
that-
about HR Puffin stuff or whatever his name?
Oh, the
really
guy that was in Deadwood, who I've only seen play people that have.
I'll need you to
JR.
attack HR.
His name was JR, I think. He's the guy who owned the apartment.
His name is
Oh,
like
the
J.K.
weirdo.
Simmons.
The one
or
that has all
something.
the
Yeah, J.K. Simmons in the movie.
the one that has all the toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is his name
Sebastian.
Sebastian. Yeah.
But his name
Oh,
is
J-
F. Sebastian or
It's
something.
like JF Sebastian.
Oh, he was the worst. I hated that character. I was uncomfortable watching him the entire time, and I could relate less to him than the replicants.
He was so distracting to me because he was in Deadwood as like the idiot mayor of the town that all I could see was him in Deadwood. But something I think you were talking about how this movie is heartless. I don't know that wasn't intentional. I feel like that fits the vibe of like this cyberpunk, like this hellscape future, and like it didn't feel wrong to me, like that he felt apathetic and that like it was hard to connect with because this like we've put ourselves in like what seems like a hellscape to me. This
Sure.
future.
I don't mean to imply that anything that Ridley Scott did was not intentional or like that he didn't execute it the way that he wanted to do it.
just that it was bad.
Just that I
you
didn't personally
yeah.
like it or relate to it or connect with it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big reason why personally I didn't. I'm just very detached
Just
from it.
disagree with all of his decisions.
Fundamentally.
And I'm sure that he watches it and thinks like that's exactly what I wanted. And for some people, that's probably very compelling. Because clearly it is for a
feel
lot of
like
people, but it's just not really
That's
for me.
well, that's kind of what I said to you at the beginning. I was like, "There's nothing to latch onto in this
Mhm.
movie."
Yeah.
I feel like
It's just
so much
lifeless.
sci-fi,
Yeah,
like-
lifeless is a good word. For
like
it, I think.
sci-fi, like maybe 80% of sci-fi is a cautionary tale of
Mm.
like, let's not do this, where like I feel like a lot of sci-fi is going to have that. We're like, man, that would suck if this was the world. I'm so glad it's not, or like
Yeah.
I feel like there's this like cautionary tale of like, this is what the future could be. And so the fact that like I don't have anybody to latch onto, I feel like maybe hits home for maybe what was, I guess you're saying you don't like it, and I think that's fair, but like I can see why it was done, and I don't necessarily disagree with the decision.
Except for me, like the world is actually kind of interesting. Like this isn't like a place where I'm like, oh, I hope that's not what the future is.
what?
Well, hold on, back up. I also want to say, like, I think I agree with that. I think that's insightful. But at the end of the day, this is a movie. This is entertainment. I want to have a good time.
I agree with you, and I think that's where somewhere in there I wasn't having a good time, and I can't figure out why. But I agree with you 100%. Like, this is a movie we should enjoy watching it, and it should be entertaining. This is entertainment. Let's make it entertaining. I agree. That's interesting. I didn't think that you would think that, honestly. Where like I feel like I don't know, more artsy movies are less entertaining.
I wouldn't classify this as art.
No, I wouldn't say it, but like Zach likes artsy movies. I would say like I'm surprised that that's what he thinks about movies. Like, this is a movie I want to have a good time.
I think that's how Zach feels about all the movies.
I don't know. Then why did I have
Generally, if it's a movie I like, I have a good.
why did I have to watch Requiem for a Dream then?
He had a good time with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's either I have a good time or I'm very moved or I'm very compelled by something. And so yeah,
You have a good time, and that it makes you feel a feeling that you wanted it to make you feel.
It creates a human response.
yeah, definitely. And so this just like doesn't really move me in any way, one way or the other. I'm detached. I'm very detached.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really feel that at all in a movie.
It's so funny because I think I agree with everything you guys are saying, except for the whole third act of this film. I actually become very attached.
Yeah, it didn't land for me.
Like the whole third act, I'm like, wow, okay, now I really feel empathy for everybody involved. Like I spend the whole movie learning how to have empathy for different people at a time. And then sort of at the very end, I kind of all of a sudden have empathy for everyone that we've followed all at once. And it feels very cathartic. and I think it's a super compelling and really interesting story. And I think it is incredibly human. And Jake, you brought this up earlier, even Tyrell's motto, more human than human.
Mhm.
Where does that shift for you, and what happens to make that shift?
I think it's the entire fight between Deckard and Beatty. I think it's from like their sort of the beginning of their actual, now they are facing off with one another. That entire time, I really felt like I understood it, and maybe even a little bit before when before Deckard fights Zora, because like honestly the whole fight with Zora I thought was
Abysmal.
useless. Yeah,
Which one is Nora?
The girl that was doing all the flips. And tried
Oh,
to
that
crush
had the
his head
horrible
with his
hair.
legs.
Okay,
yeah. I thought that was really unfortunate. That entire length of time, like I really didn't.
Kind of wish they would
appreciate
just cut that out the movie and let you not know what happened to her.
Yeah, I too. To be honest, the Tyler cut, since they're
The Hunter White
anyone
cut.
can have a cut in this film. The Tyler cut, I would lift that entire thing out, and we just don't know what happened to her.
It would-
They just refer to her dead.
It would be like the disaster artist would be like, it never comes back around.
Yes.
Or no,
I can't
because
believe we didn't talk about that. Dang it.
because she's
It really does never come back around.
it shows her dead when he's fighting with him with Beatty.
Right.
So you could just leave
You
that
could
in, and
leave
you could
that.
just like, oh, he must have fought her and she died
And
too.
she
Yeah, but
died.
that'd be like
that'd be so disorienting.
That would be disorienting.
If
That
that
would-
happened, I'd be like, what? When did she die? Then I
You
would
would be-
rewind the movie.
You would at least need a sentence of dialogue.
Yeah,
to
just have
clear that
Harrison
up.
Ford talk over it and be like, oh yeah, I killed two.
In the middle fight. God, breaking fingers, and then shows her, yeah, I killed her too.
It's about as disorienting as it was in the execution of the real one.
I don't know about that.
I think that scene though, the fight, the final confrontation was very like, and I rarely, I don't know. I feel like 80s movies, a lot of times I have a hard time with, but I thought that this was some of the better action. I was so tense.
Yeah.
I feel it was so effective.
Yeah.
And I really liked that scene.
I agree.
I was on like, it was like kind of late and I was like kind of getting tired. And then I was on the edge of my seat.
I had no tension, and I was just thinking to myself, when is this going to be over?
Actually, I can tell you the point. That switched for me. It
Okay.
was the meeting with Tyrell, and it was really one.
Beatty and Tyrell.
Yeah, it was one sentence of dialogue.
Hmm.
It was Tyrell says to Beatty, well, actually, HR Puffin stuff walks up with him and says, "I brought a friend," which is just
Yeah,
like
weird.
all of that is
Was it when they kissed? Was
Yeah,
that
it was,
the part that-
yeah,
that made you start
the whole
changing?
thing was weird. You know, I brought a friend. It was Tyrell says, I would have expected you sooner. And Beatty says, it's a heavy thing to meet one's maker.
Good line.
And I was just like, oh, dang. Okay. Like now I feel a lot more like centered in this whole film. I understand so much more of what's happening. Like, and it really made for a great third act where now like he then, has this, very like prolific awakening piece of dialogue with his creator that is to say there's nothing that can be done. He will die.
It's interesting how the third act is your favorite, because I think for me, the way that you explained it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't disagree with that at all. It's just I don't have that same experience. But the first act I think is my favorite, because I think the first act is really just exposition for the world. Like
Yeah,
it's a
that's true.
lot of that, and that's what I really like attached to in this film. And then everything that follows is just the development of the character, and that's the part that I really like struggle with.
I will say I like Scott did with the disaster artist. I started this movie 3 times.
Cassidy situation for you where you fell asleep the first 3 times and then you were like, wow,
No,
he's cooking.
No, it did not.
Scott was not good.
It was not that.
It's interesting
was
that,
not
that
that.
you don't care for Scott because
Ridley
Shooting.
Scott.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, we were talking about you.
The whole time, Ridley Scott is just your guys' like nickname for me.
Yeah, you
I
didn't
was like, I
deliver.
hate Ridley Scott.
No, I was gonna say like I am kind of on the same page. He's definitely not one of my favorite filmmakers, but I feel like every 5 or 10 years or so, he just like puts out a banger.
I'm gonna say because you really liked Alien.
I really liked Alien. Yeah.
I hate it.
It even just like, but then like he made Alien Covenant, which I haven't seen. I've heard was awful.
It's terrible.
I feel like I need to watch Alien again just because of the circumstances that we all watched it, and that was the first time I'd seen it.
With me snoring.
We started it at 2 in the morning.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
We started it at 2 a.m. in my house,
That one was rough. Yeah.
and I definitely fell asleep for at least part of it.
I think I fought for us. I was like, no, let's do it. Let's go. Let's watch it. And everyone's like, all right. We put it on and I immediately fell asleep.
Oh, you were out.
Good times.
Oh man. Well, what I don't know. What about this movie? Zach, had you seen this before you
He had, because he sent an interesting text.
No. Had you seen this before you saw 2049, which we're gonna cover next week?
I had seen I had seen Blade Runner first.
What about this made you want to see the next one? And I assume that Jake and Scott, you guys can tell me if you didn't watch it this way, but I assume you watched Blade Runner, then Blade Runner 2049.
That's what I did. Yeah.
So Zach, what about this made you want to watch 2049? And the two of you guys, what made you, after watching this movie, what were your expectations going into the next episode?
Yeah. So when Blade Runner 2049 was like initially announced, I didn't have too much of an interest in it, but it did help. I mean, I think the biggest like incentive for me was Ryan Gosling. I love Ryan Gosling, clearly.
Denny, I thought you do not love Denny at the time.
Oh, he cut me off.
Oh, sorry.
Ryan was the biggest. I can enjoy both of them.
I just thought Denny would be bigger for you.
No.
I mean, Ryan. I love Ryan.
He went as
Okay.
Ken for Halloween.
That
Sure,
wasn't
yeah.
really.
Zach
That was a
is
work
him.
costume,
Yeah.
and that was like,
No. The meta jokes that you think you've been having about memes, Zach's actually talking about himself. He is Ryan.
no, yeah, I am. He is literally me.
Oh, okay. Oh, me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So Ryan was in it, and I want to see anything that Ryan's in. But Denis was also a part of it as
Mhm.
well. And Denis was a director that I really liked, and clearly I enjoy his work a lot more than I enjoy Ridley Scott's. But the biggest thing too is that like I had friends that saw it at the time and like talked about how great it was, who didn't even like necessarily enjoy the first one, and kind of told me like, no, you can probably enjoy this movie without loving the first one.
Interesting.
So all that together.
I think having seen them now, you could probably enjoy this movie without having seen the first one if you just read a little bit about it.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
just go for it.
I think you could have just watched the second one and knew nothing about the first one and enjoyed it.
yeah,
I would have been
That's
very
true.
confused about who Deckard was.
You're not answering the question I wanted you to answer though. Like after watching
Yeah,
this,
what
what
were you
are
guys-
you
I
thinking
wanna
going
tell
into
you
watching
that
that
I was
second?
expecting it to be a hell of a lot better than what I had just watched.
I finished this movie and I was pumped for the next one because I thought there's so much here that I like, but something about it didn't hit the nail on the head. But we are going into a more modern movie, and I feel like I'm going to like it a lot. And I was this movie, even though I didn't necessarily have a good watching experience, made me set my expectations very high for the next one
Interesting.
because I felt like there's so much here, it set my expectations even higher.
You guys really cooked on that.
No,
one.
yeah, we were cooking.
Yeah. And me too.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
I'm
we
proud of both of
include
you.
you.
Yeah,
in
I'm
it when I
proud of both of
said that,
you. Well, we've done so far. I think
Probably.
I'm pretty sure.
Alien.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. I think
Alien
so.
and
I feel like I would say Alien, but again, I have to put an asterisk by that because I feel like I need to watch Alien.
Because
again.
we would have done Gladiator, but we have all seen it.
we
We
can't.
couldn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Black
I'm
is
doing
you're
next
that
year.
next year. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so compared to Alien, what do you guys think?
I would say Alien.
Alien.
I
was
like
better.
Alien a lot more.
Oh, it's Blade Runner for me.
No,
Well,
but
I figured that because you talked about how much you hate Alien.
It's the opposite for me in that I kind of hate Aliens, the sequel that a different director took up, and it's the opposite for me with Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I've heard Aliens is trash.
Prometheus, that it was an Alien prequel, I got pissed because I liked the whole movie up until that moment, and I was like, I am
Now tarnished.
I am grudge beholden to hate this film now. Thanks a lot, Ridley Scott.
Alien on IMDb has an 8.5. Aliens has 8.4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know. Just like the consensus I've heard on the internet of people being like, Aliens sucks. Alien
interesting.
is awesome. But I could just be a very biased corner of the internet that I'm in.
I don't like Aliens. I tried to rewatch it again when I rewatched Alien like a year ago, and I couldn't get through it.
Well, I probably won't try.
Yeah, I probably won't watch it.
Well, with that in mind, what do you guys say we put this one in the books?
Yeah, Kuznickel, you're up first.
I think I'm gonna give this one 7.6 owls.
All right, I'm gonna give this 6 replicants. Zach,
I'm going to give this movie 7.3 electric sheep.
Tyler,
I'm going to give this 7 excellent camera shots.
this comes out to a 70%. Movie number 105 out of 154. Once again, Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 89%. IMDb an 8.1, and it came out to a 70% on Rotten Potatoes.
Feels fair.
Well, we will catch you guys on the next step with Zach's pick.
Blade
Do you guys know what it is?
49.
Do you have any
If
idea
you-
what we're doing next week?
If you couldn't have guessed.
I worked really hard on it with Denis.
Me too. Me too.
Dude, I think this episode's just gonna be effed up.
That was a pretty good reproduction. Wow, that was almost noxious. I don't know how else to describe
Yeah,
it.
that might make the patrons sick.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
That's all they get.